All right. Hey, hello, Southland Division. This is your division manager, Jay Brad, and I'm happy to be here with Mr. John Berghoff. John Berghoff is probably a name that many of you have heard before. Some of you heard us talk about John Berghoff. He was one of the first people, he was one of the first people that really taught the company how to go big, big, big during push periods. And so what year did you start selling Cutco?
1999.
1999.
20 years ago.
Time ago. John has gone on to do a lot of pretty amazing things. If you want to go to the Changing Lives Selling Knives podcast and listen to his episode, you'll hear a lot of pretty exciting things that John's been able to do to really make an impact on the world. Very positive. Let's talk about your first summer selling Cutco knives.
Sure.
Okay, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And you wanted me to make a disclaimer. The things we're going to talk about, some of these things John hasn't talked about or taught in a very, very long time, right? And so I actually have notes from a talk he gave probably 15 years ago. And he's seeing them for the first time in maybe 15 years or something like that.
It's quite entertaining.
So there you go. So tell me about your first summer. Why did you decide to sell knives, and why did you decide to start going big for push periods?
Yeah, well, two great questions. I started selling knives because I had a friend who was selling knives, and I saw the not just the income he was generating, but the joy that he had in the experience. And that's the simple way that I got into it. And then it just so happened I started in the summer, and there was a push period like the week after I started. So I went to that first summer conference one, and actually going to that conference in and of itself was a big decision. We had a family trip that we moved so I could go to it. Looking back, that's one of, I guess, quite a few decisions that was a life-changing decision, because at that conference, I saw the push period, and I saw the reasons for me why I wanted to see what I was capable of.
Okay.
And that got me motivated to have to put in everything I could for our summer conference 2 push period. And that became kind of a tipping point for my Cutco experience, because through great teaching and mentors, and obviously a great product, which is irreplaceable, and we have the privilege to sell it, I put in a lot of effort and had great things happen. And then my whole career with Cutco took off. And the funny thing is, 20 years later, I actually think all the time about how the decision to see what was possible during a push period was maybe one of the most beneficial decisions I ever could have made, because it taught me certain things that today are still the most beneficial lessons and skills that I'm using in all different environments.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Now the record, you were going to go for a new record. I think the record was 23,000 or something, 22,000.
Well, yeah. Dan would of course remember it down to the penny.
Exactly. Yeah.
There was some amount that somebody had sold, and I wanted to break that, and through hard work and good fortune, that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think your first big push period was like 26,000.
Yep.
And you'd never, I don't even know how much you'd sold the most ever in a week before that. Probably only a few $1,000.
A couple thousand, yeah.
Yeah, in a week, and did 26,000 in a 14 or 15 day push period, I think.
That's right.
And then I remember in your notes even say this. After that, you went on to do 11 weeks in a row over 4,000. So
that's right.
It's like you push yourself really hard, and even though you didn't push yourself nearly as hard, having big weeks was just easier after that for you.
Yeah, well, I don't know if this is something that's still shared to every Cutco training class like it was 20 years ago, but I took it really seriously when Dan taught us that idea that the mind is like plastic, not elastic. A rubber band, you stretch it, it goes back. A plastic bag, you stretch it, it stays the same. And I heard that and I thought, wow, like, what if that's actually true? Maybe it's not true, but if it is true, let me push myself. And it became true that everything after that, it's kind of like a thermostat. It was permanently changed, and everything was able to be easier after that.
Your mind and your capacity grow. Then after that, you made a decision a little bit after that to have a really big push period. You'd set the record. You'd set the record at 26,000, and then you decided you wanted to like double that record or go to 50,000 or something. And you ended up with over 60, like almost 70,000, 69,000, which was a record that stood for a long, long, long time. By the way, that was broken twice a couple of years ago. A rep in Chicago did 70. Beautiful. And then Brandon Brown, who's a top rep in Southern California, did 100,000 for a push.
That's awesome.
Yeah, 100.
That's
100K.
awesome.
So
that's so inspiring.
The prices are a little higher now than they were back then. Okay.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah.
Maybe in your dollars.
It's like a $400,000 push.
Yeah,
sure.
probably.
Yeah, the homemaker was $12 when I sold. So.
All right. So anything else you want to say about making those decisions, or you want to kind of get into some of the tips? Can we dive into
Well, let's keep going. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to look at the actual notes, okay, that from your old talk. And the managers are all going to have these notes. Yeah, but we'll just kind of share. You can.
Let's start with the phone.
Yeah, we'll do the phone talk.
Yeah, let's start with the phone. And we can, I can kind of summarize the essence of these notes.
Sure.
It's crazy to look at notes from some talk I gave some, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago. But when I looked back through this and I think about what allowed me to be really successful on the phone, Brad, I think it was 2 or 3 things, and we can unpack these any way you'd like. I think the first thing is I really learned how to gamify phone time. Like and my good buddy Hal Elrod, who he and I were peers and we sold together and we were roommates at the same time. You know, he was really somebody who modeled this, and he talked about commit to a process and commit to a number of calls and learn to be unattached to the outcome, which is easy to say. It can be tough to do. But I really took that to heart, and I thought, I have to remember that if somebody says no to me on the phone, sometimes we play these games in our heads. And the game we play in our head is we tell ourselves that, gosh, this person who just said no, I'm probably going to see him later today at the grocery store, and they're going to look at me because I called that right. And then you make up stories about how people really feel. And I think I eventually realized that if somebody says no to me on the phone, there's a good chance that they probably forgot about the entire conversation before they were done hanging up the phone.
Yeah, at least within a minute or two.
Yeah, really. And so I had to just get over myself and realize they don't care about it as much as I do. And that's just kind of the inner game. So gamifying it, and gamifying it is setting up a score and saying, I'm going to sit down right now. And it was the ant philosophy, right? It was do it until. I'd say, I want to set 10 appointments. I did not take the approach of, I'm going to make 30 or 40 calls. I took the approach of, I want to set this many appointments, and I'm going to make calls until literally I get that or I run out of time and I can't keep calling. That was my personal philosophy.
Good.
And it served me well. And so gamifying it was one thing. The other thing was, and I guess it's all related, was intensity. I just wrote that word down earlier when I was looking at these notes. I had a certain intensity about phone time. And one of the things I realized is that not all reps approach phone time the same way. And you can have 2 reps that are in an office. I made all my calls sitting in the office next to my manager because otherwise I couldn't keep myself accountable or disciplined. And that was the only way for me to get it done. And if I was there, I thought, if I'm going to be here, I want to be producing something. So my rule for myself is I'm either talking to somebody or dialing another number. If I'm not doing one of those 2 things, I'm being delusional about what's going on. So there was a real intensity. And it was a game that I played with myself to constantly see if I could get more calls in, more conversations done. And the other word that I think about is a real determination when I was on the phone with a customer to find a way to get an appointment. And it was a combination of a determination and a playfulness. Like I'm looking at some of the things I used to teach here. And, there's some fundamentals that are important around scheduling, because oftentimes I think a customer is closer to giving us a demo than we think.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They're closer to giving us a demo than we think. And they're just putting up a natural human defense when they say, I'm too busy, I got this going on, because that's all true. And I've come to realize I just need to persist maybe a little bit more to help that customer feel great finding a way to see me. And sometimes that means remembering to be really smart about offering choices of times. You're probably all taught that, but picking 2 choices of times the next day, that one might be mid-morning, one is afternoon, far enough apart to where I might find a space in their calendar that works. And I got really good at when a customer would say, oh, I'd love to see you, but I've got to pick up my kids at 3, is to not hear that as a no, but to hear that as, okay, I need to come back with a different response and say, oh, hey, well, if you're going to be back by 4, I could drop by at 4:45, or if I come by 1:30, I'll be done before you have to leave. A lot of times I think a customer would hear that and they'd think, oh boy, this guy's really serious about getting this appointment. And it's almost like, I don't know how else to put it, they would give up on trying to come up with reasons because they realize this kid is pleasantly persistent. And which leads me to the idea, and this has to do with intensity and being persistent, I would share with my customers that I was hardworking. I wanted to be somebody that they would want to help.
Sure.
I wanted to be somebody, and I didn't realize this till years later, but I think a lot of customers enjoyed helping me because they saw me behaving the way they would want their kids to behave.
Absolutely. We teach that.
So working around their schedule, letting them know that I'm working hard. And the final thing I'd add about the phone time is playfulness. And I would make sure that on the phone, the customer could hear some part of me that sounded like I was having fun. Because at the end of the day, I think a customer is making a judgment when they hear this person they've never met. And that judgment, whether it's conscious or unconscious, is, would I want to hang out with this kid or this guy or gal for 20 or 30 or 40, whatever time he's going to ask for? Because if I come across as unenjoyable or in some way that they wouldn't want to hang out with me, it's not going to serve me. So I see the note here, be prepared to handle objections in a lighthearted way. I'm just now remembering all the things we used to do. I probably learned half of this from you, Brad. How long is it going to take? 7 or 8 months, but if you want the short version, we could get it done in 6 or 8 days, right? But you have to say that with a laugh, because there's certain things, if you say it with a smile, and when you say something like that, you pause. And also when you tell a joke, you have to slow down, because if you say it too quickly, they don't get it. And now you're just weird, right? Your
pace is important.
So you got to slow down. You got to let it land, and either let them laugh, or if they don't laugh, let them hear you laugh, so they know you're not really that crazy. What are you selling? It doesn't matter. I could be showing you picture frames. I'm the one that gets credit to see it. It's, I'd say, well, they'd say, what are you selling? I'd say, well, do you like being in the kitchen? And whether they said yes or no, my next response was going to be, oh, then you're going to love hanging out with me, right? Yes, great. You're going to love this because of blank. No, great. You're going to love this. And I'd either say, because this is stuff for people who don't like being in the kitchen, or I'd say the demo will be even faster, but it still helps me out.
Yeah, good.
So either way, being lighthearted with that. And I'd say, you want the long version, 8 months, the short version, you could actually just give me your credit card right now and we'll get this taken care of. It.
Yeah.
Now, someone might hear that and think, well, I'd be afraid to say that. But I think at the end of the day, people appreciate authenticity and that realness in a young person a lot, maybe more than we give credit to. The other thing that I'm seeing in these notes from these prior talks that I gave is I'm reminded that I sold a lot of knives during unconventional hours. And I think I learned this maybe from Roman Malik. I think he was the one who told me.
Wow.
I think he was the one who told me, he said, everybody you call, they're all watching late night TV. Now, maybe they really love their late night TV and they don't want to give. Now, nowadays with Netflix, this was a different era, which frankly should make it easier because they don't have to be there at a certain time. But his point was, people are awake at night. And I thought, well, what if that's true? Right? So whenever I'd hear somebody say something that maybe I was skeptical of, or I've never actually seen that work, should I really try this hard or go all in or do some new thing that someone is suggesting who's had success? I think one of the most important things to ask is, well, what if that is true? Then might it be worth it for me to actually see what could happen if I follow that advice? Because frankly, I've not actually lived that. So who am I to judge the advice of people who've come before me and made this work? And that was one example. And I think during some of those push periods, I sold thousands and thousands of dollars after 9 p.m. I'd have phone time where I'd be on the phone at 8 or 8:30 and I couldn't get them the next day. I'd say, I'll tell you what, I'm working so hard. I'll come see you in 45 minutes. And by the way, if you want me to bring you a snack or a dessert, you tell me what you want. I'll bring you something. Back then I used to offer to bring, they said they're busy or it was the middle of the day. I'll bring you your favorite sandwich from Subway or a cookie or something, or a coffee from Starbucks.
Very nice.
And I don't know if anybody, I think one person one time took me up on actually bringing the thing, but many times they gave me the demo because they enjoyed the playful persistence and they respected that.
It's great. Right down here at the bottom of this phone notes, it says schedule in the same area. That makes sense. Don't schedule demos during phone time. Schedule phone time first. I see reps do this all the time. They just schedule the demo whenever they can get it. And they might schedule 2 demos on a Sunday night, but then they have no demos Monday or Tuesday because they screwed up their Sunday night phone time.
Yeah, is that like biting the hand that feeds us or something like that?
It's something.
There's some saying that would make this work. But,
I don't know what it is.
Well,
and then
you just said the point, so I don't have to say it.
There you go. And then no demo is ever more important than a team function. You went to team meetings?
I never missed a team meeting. Dan Cassetta could confirm that. And
you told me like in 4 years of being a Cutco rep, you never missed a team.
Yeah, if I was in town, I would never have a demo or any reason to not be at a team meeting.
Sometimes did you ever not really want to go and just but knew that you needed to go?
There were probably quite a few times where I didn't want to go. But the benefit of going always ended up out, because for me it was like it was for the same reason that people who practice a faith, they do something once a week to honor that faith, because it's not just their belief system, but it literally refuels them. The team meeting for me was like a refueling. So when I didn't want to go, it was probably when it was most important to go.
That's good advice. Let's talk about the demo here a little bit. You had something that you said at the beginning of the demo right here, that setting the expectation. I'll just highlight it. You remember saying this?
Yeah, I do remember saying that. Yeah, I would say to the customer.
Role play it. Say it.
I'll role play it. I'll read my own script. Yeah. So early in the demo, I'd obviously thank them for letting me come over. And I would tell them to be consistent like I did on the phone. It's always important that if you say something on the phone early during the demo, after building rapport, say something that shows them that you are being consistent with what you said on the phone.
Yeah.
Because even if your intention and the spirit is to be consistent, if you don't say it, people can feel like you said one thing, but you're doing something different. So I was always very clear to say, hey, look, just like I said on the phone, you don't have to get anything. I am going to warn you, though, that a lot of people I meet with fall in love with what I'm going to show you. And there were lots of different kind of opening things that I played with over the years, like opening statements. And one of them I'm looking at, and I would say, hey, I know you don't have thousands of dollars sitting under your pillow or buried out in the backyard waiting for the knife guy to show up so you can buy a knife or two, which I don't see on this script, but I remember saying, I know you don't have $1,000 waiting so you can buy a couple of knives. Part of what I was doing there is using that language to set this idea that, what? Is this crazy? And I don't mind if they think that. And I would tell them, I'd say, but look, here's the deal. A lot of your friends love this stuff. Now, if I was selling today, I'd probably ask a couple questions right here. I'd say, hey, before I tell you anything today, I would actually ask, what have you heard about this? What do you know about it? What have your friends said about it? I'd rather get them telling me how much their friends have told them they bought it and they love this stuff.
Beautiful.
But I used to have these kind of opening statements, and I'd say, look, you weren't planning on getting anything. I respect that. But there is something for you, which is I'm in a contest right now. And if you were to see something you like for either yourself or somebody as a gift.
I like this little by the way.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, I promise you will agree this is one of the best gifts you can ever give or get, right? Either way, because I'm in this contest, you'll get a better deal now than you ever would. So you'll save a bunch of money that you probably would end up spending anyways. And I'm just trying to get them to open up to reasons to possibly consider just listening to the demo. That's all I'm trying to do in a demo is, can I get them to be open for the next couple minutes? Because if I can buy a few minutes at a time, then eventually the stuff starts selling itself. Right?
I love it. And that's all good. They buy because they feel understood. This is just kind of a key little thing about understanding sales in general.
Yeah.
I need to show them I understand their needs. So how do you do that? Do you do that? You ask a lot of questions, or ask what kind of cooking they do, or how did you go about doing that?
Yeah. I think when I go back and think about why would somebody buy Cutco, I think there's different reasons they would buy it. You have one type of customer who might buy it because they legitimately really spend a lot of time in the kitchen and they really care about having nice things. And so I've got to really pay attention. Is that who I'm dealing with? Because if that is, then I need to magnify, as I'm talking about all the features and all the benefits, that, hey, because you love being in the kitchen, here's why this feature or why this benefit makes a lot of sense for you. At the same time, one of the magical things about selling Cutco is I could also be with somebody who doesn't like being in the kitchen. And that wasn't uncommon for me to see working parents or a working mom who she just didn't have the time or energy, and I could relate to that. And so what was great is when I learned that, I could still explain all the features and benefits in a way that would say, look, and I wouldn't emphasize this is for a chef, because that's not who this is.
Right.
I would emphasize this is great for somebody who just wants to get in and out, know that everything works, and know they've got the best stuff so that they can go do the things they really want to do. So that's part of understanding other people and then adjusting the language accordingly.
Yeah, that's good. Good advice there. So it says here some notes under transition to names and uses. You talk about the large, medium, and small set. This is like right after the guarantee, right before you're getting ready to introduce maker pieces.
That's right. So I had a kind of an epiphany. I can't remember how it all happened as a rep, but I thought to myself, if I want to sell sets, then I should really rethink how I'm approaching names and uses. And instead of thinking to myself, well, I'm gonna try and convince them that each knife is what they need, I'd rather kind of zoom out a little bit and say to myself and think, well, how can I communicate that the decision for them to make is not which knives, but which set?
Yep.
And so the way that I would make that point is by letting them know that, hey, I'm about to show you some of our different sets. And what you're going to notice is that we have sets for people who love to cook, people who cook just because they have to, and for people like me who just use a fork and a microwave. Mm-hmm. So no matter how they categorize themselves, and no matter how interested they still are in buying knives, I've now created these categories that give me permission to, instead of saying, here's each knife, to say, well, here's what's in the complete set. Here's what's in the medium size or the small set. Nowadays, there's names have all changed for sets, so you have to figure out which of those are that you're offering.
Yeah, no, same. Complete, family, and basic is what we still call them. Now, I know Dan has talked about a lot of times to have a big push period, or when you had your big push, your average order size was much larger than normal. You sold a lot of orders that were over $3,000, and sometimes bigger. So you've got to be selling complete sets and family sets, and plus probably adding cookware and some other things to it. I like your little tips on how to sell the table knives and the steak knives, and then if they like those steak knives, you kind of promote the bigger sets because they only come in the complete set and the family set. Do you remember
I sure do. I think one of the most important selling lessons that one of our managers had taught me at one point is that the easiest person to sell knives to is somebody who's in the middle of buying knives. Right? If they're already going to buy something, that is literally the person and the moment that is easiest to sell more knives.
That's a great concept. And our CSP teams, they are masters at this now. They call it upserving. Not upselling, they call it upserving, because the more Cutco people buy, the better service they're going to get from our product line. Excellent.
So the table knives are an example where, and I was taught this by so many others who had come before me, that, when you sell table knives, you don't have to just take the way the company configures the sets. You can choose to present them in a way that you believe best serves the customer. Now, back then, the homemaker came with 8 table knives, and I would let the customer know right when they cut the leather. I'd say, now you can see why not only do these come with every set, but why people are often choosing either 8, 16, or 24 of these table knives. Now, if you hear that and you think 24 table knives, that sounds crazy. I will tell you, my wife and I have 3 young kids right now, and I think we own 15 table knives. We probably lose one every 2 months. We can't find half of them. And having 15 or 20 of a table knife is not a big deal for a family that's using them all the time. And some of you watching this, I don't know who you are, but my guess is you don't have 3 kids, and you might not be able to relate to that. And I had to learn to say things that I actually didn't understand until I saw how people responded, and then eventually happy customers saying, I'm glad I have 12 of these instead of 8, that it really is serving a customer in many cases to upserve them in that case. So
anybody who does a dinner party ever, they're basically screwed if they don't have 12 or 16 table knives, right? Some people are going to have to use lame-o knives, and people are fighting over the knives. You know what people are fighting when they got knives in their hands. You don't want that. It's not a good thing.
One other thing on upserving is I always thought it was really important to set up my presentation book so that as I'm going through my demo, I had pages with different accessories that was literally just an excuse for me to have to say something about the cookware, to say something about the flatware. So it would be like, oh, I'm turning to the next page. Oh, by the way, we have flatware. And what I would do is, it's very important when we're selling to be present, to actually look at the customer's reaction. And oftentimes the most important signals that a customers give, it's not dramatic, but it's subtle. It's a micro reaction. So, and any of you have done enough demos, you've all seen this. If you're really paying attention, you say something and you see them lean in just a little bit, or just catch their attention when you point out that you have certain things.
It's good. Good point.
Yeah. So I'd have these just kind of in the way. And if I see a reaction, I'd stop. And I go, hey, I'll come back to these and talk about these in a little bit, and just make note of that. So it was natural to come back and offer these other products.
Well, just so you know, I'm not sure what day it is, but in the next 3 to 4 days, we're going to be doing a training on how to introduce the Cutco kitchen. And there's actually a brochure now. It's just a 3-page fold-out that has everything just to introduce the idea and the concept. You guys getting ready to start? We got a young lady here.
This is my daughter, Sierra. Say hi.
Hello.
Oops. No, they can meet Sierra.
Yeah, I want to stop the sharing.
All right, cool.
Here we go. Oh, there she is. She can say hi again.
You want to say hi?
This is Sierra. They're getting ready.
Are they starting up there?
We're getting ready to start.
They're starting to group people.
Oh,
okay.
All right, great.
We're going to hit a couple of these other things just real fast then until they get started.
Sierra, one sec. Sierra, can you go get me a really good seat? Ask either Scott or Adair to get John a really good seat for the drum circle.
We're getting ready to do something.
And a good drum
in my life.
Really good
upstairs.
drum.
It's called the drum circle. I'm not sure I'm into this, but they're doing it, so I'm going to join them. All right. So managing mindset. Okay. Now they can't see this screen. They can just see me and you talking now.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes dealing rejection. Mentioned a couple of these things here. Sometimes dealing with rejection is the most challenging.
We covered this really well earlier, I think, when we talked about the idea of realizing that when people reject us, we create these stories in our heads that just aren't true.
That's true. And most of these things can be covered by the local manager. Yeah, here you said, my motto for phoning, unless I'm talking to a customer or dialing a number, I'm not phoning. You said that earlier. Yeah. Speak to these last 3 points right here. Challenges will come.
Yeah. So I think that one of the greatest gifts that the push period gave to me was helping me to realize that learning how to self-impose or put a challenge upon myself is one of the greatest ways to set me up for a really successful life. Because life is full of challenges that get put on us.
Now, did you realize this then, or do you realize it later?
No, I realized it later.
That's the problem. We get really smart after we go through these experiences.
Yeah. I was at least smart enough, though, to realize that all these reasons that our managers were saying it's worth it to go all out, I thought, again, they've lived something that I have not. And what if it's true?
Yeah.
Like, what if it's true that whoever you are that are watching, what if it's true that you are capable of doing something that you've never imagined is possible? What if that's true? Well, then what should you do? What should your plan be? And I've always been of the belief that if I want to do something I've never done, I should have a plan, but I should also commit to giving every ounce that I have just to see what happens and what I'm made of. And oftentimes in the end, the benefits and the gifts from that were unexpected.
Yeah.
And they end up paying off in ways that could never be measured later on. So it takes a little bit of maturity to realize right now that these push periods are a gift, and it's worth pouring everything into it because it'll change you forever.
What's the hardest part? The beginning of the push, somewhere in the middle, or somewhere at the very end? Do you have any recollection of that?
The beginning, the middle, or the end? Well, all of it. I always wanted to have momentum going into a push, so I always cranked up my phone calls like the week before. And it was really important. It was really important to be prepared ahead of time for how am I going to respond when my plans don't work, when people don't buy, when a customer no-shows. And my decision was, when things go wrong, I'm going to turn up the dial. I'm going to choose to use that as an excuse to go even more all in. Because I really think challenges are the greatest opportunity to shape who we really are.
Yeah.
Right? Challenges are the greatest opportunity to not just decide, but actually change the person that we are. And so if I'm facing a challenge, I can either back down or give in or give up and listen to my excuses, or I could stop and say, well, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to pour into this because that's the kind of person I want to be.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks for your time, John. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Good. We hugged yesterday. We hugged 2 days in a row now. I hugged John Berghoff.
We're going to the drum circle. It's right upstairs.
Yeah, they're going to drag me to do this thing I've never done. And
good luck, everybody.
All right, have a great push, everybody. And I'm going to talk to you again right after this video is over. So take care, and we'll talk in just a minute. I'm going to stop this.